Welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and I'm so excited to have you here. This podcast is about all things wellness. Each week, we will focus on a word of the day, and I interview some of the most inspirational people I know and share that inspiration with you. Join me, let's learn together on What's the Word.
This is the place where I belong.
Hi, and welcome back to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and today we have a very special episode. Today, we are going to talk about the word stoic, which by definition means a person who can endure pain or hardship without showing their feelings or complaining, and or a member of the ancient philosophical school of Stoicism. So I am very excited to get into this one today. And we are going to be chatting with Louie Martinez, who runs a creative studio from film to post-production to woodworking, machining, 3D printing, and laser engraving. And let me just tell y'all, he's also the Oz to my show. He is my podcast producer, editor, all things related to What's the Word. He is just my right hand, and I'm so excited to finally get him on the podcast. Louie Martinez, how are you, sir?
Hi, Jamie. Great to be on. Great to be on this side of the camera for once.
It's so fun. I know. It's great to have you here. And I love that you are actually in your shop. This is where the magic gets made. And I'm so happy to see you here right now. So let's just dive right in. You chose the word stoic, which I'm not surprised. Some very epic and profound word that you chose, being that it's you. Tell me why you chose that word and what does it mean?
You know, I thought about it for a while and I kind of landed on stoic. I've been studying a lot recently and reading a lot about philosophy. A couple of years ago when COVID started, I kind of had the feeling that we were going to be going into a widespread moral panic. And I think I was right. And, you know, there's not much you can do about that except educate yourself and prepare yourself for that stuff. And I just made a conscious decision to start reading as much as possible and just taking in as much information as possible, because that's really all you can do to prepare yourself for tough times is just be ready, know what you stand for, know what you know. And so I ran across a lot of different philosophies, and Stoicism stood out to me for a long time. It was, it was started by this guy Zeno of Citium, like 300 BC or something like that. Don't quote me on that. It was expanded upon by Epictetus, and then it was sort of personified by this Marcus Aurelius guy. He was emperor of Rome. Basically personified all the tenets of Stoicism, and he was the epitome of the philosopher king, the warrior poet, teaching you how to wield power, manage yourself, manage your life, get your life in order. And it's just, it's a cool word. I like the philosophy.
I love the philosophy. I love that you chose a philosophical word about philosophy, and just that we're doing this episode together. You have literally made my real life dream come true. So I have to just give you a massive shout out right now to anyone that's listened to these episodes. And I've been getting so much feedback that people are really just loving the concept, the format, everything that we've done. And there's absolutely 100% no doubt that I could not have made any of this happen without you. So big kudos to you. I'm so thankful for you. And so now let's dive right in. So you basically do, I joke around, and to those that are listening right now, I joke around because Louie is really good, actually incredibly good and incredibly talented at multiple things. I won't even say jack of all trades because you're so good at so many things. You're so talented that it's not like you're just kind of dabbling in things. No, I have to say this. He is someone that can go, compose a beautiful song on a piano and at the same time craft the most incredible playground out of pieces of wood that he goes and picks up. So you are just a very unique individual. And I think having you on What's the Word will really inspire a lot of people to kind of go out there and dive into their dreams, because like I said, you're kind of the Oz behind the scenes, making this all possible for me as well. So you've designed a whiskey app named the Whiskey League. I know you and I have had chats over whiskey. You've certainly had me try some delicious whiskeys with you. And, let's talk about that for a moment. although this is a health and wellness podcast, I think it's really important to let everyone know that holistic health is about doing things that bring joy and make you feel happy. And certainly, I think that there is room for this whiskey league that we can talk about in a honest, healthy manner. So let's.
Well, the fourth tenet of Stoicism is actually moderation. So, moderation means not too much or too little of something. It's finding the right balance so that it's a plus and not a minus in your life. So we can bring it back to there. Yeah, the Whiskey League app is something that, let me take us back. So in 2010, I was running an alternative energy company and I was moonlighting at night, bartending and working in restaurants, which, I was single. I had the time. Whatever. And, but it was a lot of fun. I really liked it. And eventually I got, mixed into this, restaurant group. And I was put in charge my buddy was put in charge and I was, kind of his right-hand guy at this place called Taurus Beer and Whiskey House in Coconut Grove, in Miami. And anyway, I was the marketing director, for the company, and I was in charge of, all things creative and loyalty programs and scheduling, marketing stuff. But one of the things I created was this loyalty program called the Whiskey Ambassadors Guild, and it was this really cool thing. I'll show it to you. It was like a passport. I was really proud of it. It was like a passport, and you signed up for it, and it led you on. Like, it had a whole map and everything. A whole map of the world and everything. And it led you, I was really proud of this thing. So it led you on a series of trails throughout the world, and you'd go around stamping each, spirit, each whiskey that you tried out. And anyway, that was my old gig. But I came out here to, the San Francisco Bay Area, and I figured, well, you got to make an app. You're here. So I decided to start, learning how to do that and preparing to do that and finding a developer, etc. So I've been working on that for a long time. I finally feel like I got a lot of traction going. I got my buddy Jeff Banker, who super talented, smart guy. He's lead developer on it, and it's very exciting. It's should be out some point next year.
Woohoo! All right, everyone. So be on the lookout for that. And then I think there's also something that we can talk about today. You're announcing the first ever Silicon Valley Whiskey Festival. Yes?
That's right. That's right. 'Cause why not? Why not one more thing? So, my buddy, Felipe, who used to run the Taurus, he also has his hands in a couple of spirits festivals and whiskey festivals in South Florida, and I noticed that there's a vacuum of that in this area, and I just called him up and said, "You want to do this?" And he said, "Hell yeah!" And so we plan on putting it together, a first annual Silicon Valley Whiskey Festival by spring of next year. We're trying to lock down a location. We're between 3 different places, and there are a lot of things to consider. But that's the plan. I think it's the perfect market. I think there's so many people here. There's so much interest. There's a lot of money, and there's just a lot of young programmers making $250,000 a year who still can't afford a house. so they have a lot of expendable income, and we'd love to open their world up to some, maybe some of the finer things in life, like really nice whiskey.
Like really nice whiskey. I will admit, Louie, you have gotten me to taste some really fine whiskey that I had never tasted before. And it's something about the experience that really makes a big difference when it comes to that. And you do a really phenomenal job at making people feel the experience when they're with you. And that's what I love so much about your energy and what you really bring to the table. So let's go back to your word of the day, stoic. You had brought up the 4th kind of key component to it. I think it's really interesting for our viewers to understand what are the other 3 components to it. And, how can we utilize this, right? It's what's the word? How can we use that word stoic in our own life as we're, whether we're walking with this podcast or driving with it, whatever it is, just to give some food for thought so people can actually take this and take some tangible steps to be a little bit more stoic in their own life.
So the cardinal virtues, I think they're known as the cardinal virtues of Stoicism, are wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Um, Wisdom, obviously, it's what I was referring to earlier. It's preparing yourself to make the right decision when it comes time to make that decision. And you prepare yourself by learning, take in as much as possible, take in as much information as possible, take in as much experience as possible, take the good with the bad, take things you disagree with, read people you disagree with, follow people you disagree with on Twitter or whatever. Listen to the other side. You have, whatever your side might be, you learn from this. It's not a negative. And that way you can shape your mind to be ready for any argument, any challenge, any problem that puts itself in front of you. The second virtue is justice. And justice is basically understanding what's right and wrong, what's true and false. And the third is courage, which is having the courage to stand up for what's right and wrong, for your beliefs. And I think a lot of people could use a little stoicism these days, don't you?
Absolutely. That's why I'm like, no, we need to dive more into this, because you have always been someone, and, Louie, you are hysterical and funny. You're a great dad. You have so many wonderful qualities, but something also that really stands out about you is that you're not afraid to stand sometimes alone and making a statement or saying something. And I think that you're very bold in what you believe in. And then you also always, whatever your statement may be, or whatever you're talking about or sharing with someone, you're always willing to listen. You're always willing to, accept and embrace each individual as we are. And I come to see that with you. And you do it in a way that's very humorous and very witty and cutting edge, like the social media post that I think you recently did, where you got some traction on.
I went viral. I went viral.
So can you share a little bit about that?
Oh man, it's been a couple of weeks, but it was about the whole Will Smith at the Oscars smacking Chris Rock. And basically I made a post about I compared it to Othello and how it's a real tragedy with no real winners. And what you saw was a broken man who was led to violence, which was definitely wrong. But you can see that you were dealing with an unhinged, broken man who's being, just dragged through the mud psychologically in this, in my opinion, awful agreement that he's got with his wife, where, he's being publicly humiliated over and over again. And she just doesn't seem to realize you can't do that to a man for very long. And so it picked up a lot of traction. I tried to be very sympathetic, and like the National Men's Health Board shared it, and just people started. I saw it. It was the first time for me, but you see the thing go viral where it, it's like an epidemic growth where it just keeps connecting and growing out, and it got I don't know how many hundred shares. I don't know. It was crazy, and it was weird because I had people defending me and giving me props and blah, blah, blah. And then I had people attacking me and saying, who is this guy? He doesn't know what he's blah, blah, blah. And of course, you think about that more than the 10x positive feedback you get. Yeah, it was weird. It made me think, man, how do some of these people that are very public and very out there and are viral all the time, I mean, how do they do this? Because it's got to be so psychologically draining. I don't know. It was weird.
Well, it was definitely, I feel, a moment of you shining. And I know that there are many more to come. And also that's going to come with, and I like that you just brought that up, because you and I had talked about it when it was happening. And at first there was kind of this wave, this high of like, wow, this whole thing got all this traction. And it's obviously something that you believed in. You always put things out there that you really believe in, and it got all this traction. And then you had a couple, trolls or people given it some negativity. And I remember right away, you were like, man. And I'm like, but look, think about all the good stuff, that you had so many people that were, but I think for those that are listening, there's always going to be on our life journey, on this experience that we're having, if we're really being true to ourselves and we're really putting ourselves out there, no matter what, there's going to be people that just don't like it, that just don't agree with it, that just aren't for it. And I think that just takes us once again right back to your word stoic, because once we have the knowledge to make our own decisions and decide what is true and false for us, what is real and not in our own world, by doing enough research and I know you, I see you, you're continuously reading, you're continuously researching. You and I have these conversations all the time that get incredibly deep. And I really hope that this podcast can inspire someone listening to kind of go out in the world with a little bit of a different lens today, thinking about those 4 qualities. So can you share with our audience, you've been working on this podcast with me now just over a year. We've put a lot of heart and soul into this. We've got a lot of things coming up in the pipeline. What do you want for a listener to get out of this podcast today?
My theory is always make them laugh or make them think. If you can't do either of those, just keep it to yourself. So, I really hope that this specific podcast gets people to think about how they can improve their lives. That's the theme of your podcast. Our podcast is, self-care. And like I said, I think people could use a little fortification philosophically in their lives to really get their bearings and kind of have an organized strategy for going through these kind of insane times. And I don't say that lightly. We have baby food shortages. In 2022, we have baby food shortages. Something's wrong, I don't know that there are any easy answers. I have thoughts, but like I said, the best thing you can do for yourself moving forward is to fortify yourself intellectually, spiritually, mentally, and that'd be my advice to a lot of people. Pick up something. Pick up something that you can learn from that might improve your life. Instead of listening to a podcast about that's funny, which there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe try a financial podcast. Maybe try instead of reading a book about some celebrity, read a book about finance, about how to get your stuff together, how to figure out different means of income. A lot of people were ruined in the last couple of years, and they had to hustle to figure out their next source of income, and that should be something you have anyway. You should never feel completely secure and comfortable in whatever position you are, because things change, and any given Tuesday something can happen and change everything around, and you should be ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. And I think that's a perfect thing that people can kind of sit on, chew on a little bit. And, even just hearing you say that and thinking about all the hard work that you and I have put in together, and then all the other things that both of us have going on, when we're not doing the podcast, there's, 10 million other things, but we still, I think that's what it really comes down to. And actually it reminds me of, so the book that I'm just about to release, that's all about everything that we do on the podcast, self-care, and the fact that it does take a village, and the fact that it isn't a solo mission, right? It's not about us just, doing everything on our own, but at the same time, you need to take responsibility for your well-being. You need to take responsibility for the actions that you're taking. In doing a lot of research for that book, it was really fascinating. I think you'll find this interesting to learn that self-care in and of itself actually stems all the way back to 5 BC from Socrates. And it was him kind of mocking what was going on at that time, where people were so concerned with their dollars and so consumed by, the looks or aesthetics of things, that they weren't realizing what was really happening. And people were actually really miserable. And he was saying, self-care is actually taking a hard look in that mirror at your own reflection and seeing what it is that you need to contemplate in your own world to eventually make the world a better place. How are you going to show up? Right. And it's interesting because if you fast forward to today's day and age, we're rated on how many likes, how many reviews, how many this, how many that.
Another
right?
famous Greek.
Of course. Well, I mean, it did all stem from the Greeks, right?
They had some good ideas.
They did. They sure did. But I think that it is what you're saying is simple in terms of, anyone right now listening, take a moment today to look at something different that you've never researched or that that's not really what you're interested in, but get interested, be curious. Louie is someone that you've helped me do things that I was afraid of, right? I always wanted to start a podcast, but it wasn't until you were the one that said, come on, let's just do it. Let's just make it happen. And then we made it happen. And here we are, thousands of downloads later in a year, multiple thousands, going to speak at a podcast event, all these things where this would have not happened without you pushing me out of my comfort zone. So I would say that Louie today, to everyone listening, watching, whatever it may be, is reminding us all to get a little bit out of our comfort zone, sometimes get a little bit out of our own way and try to really learn something new and question what's going on. Like, why are we having these same thoughts and what's going on around us? How are we participating actively in our own world and in our own life? And now I'm going to change the script a little bit as we kind of get towards the end of this interview. But Louie and I also come from a very performance background. And just very recently, Louie has acted and produced in 2 short films that are set for festivals releasing this year, one of which you and I were supposed to be actually actively acting together on. I think I'm still doing the voiceover for, which is great. But, talking about bringing the element in our stoic self of, performance, of entertainment. I think that there's a huge key component there. So, talk us through about kind of how that's been diving back into the entertainment side.
Well, yeah, it's been fun. I've been involved in a couple of short films and multiple small projects and commercials and stuff like that. The first one's called Missed Call, and it's a couple of my friends from tech here who wrote this great horror short. And their names are Greg Lancaster and Rye Rockerbomber. And they came to me and said, hey, we have this script. We'd love to make this. And can you help out? And I said, yeah, sure. Why not? So it ended up being really cool, a great shoot. And COVID kind of screwed everything up because all the festivals were closed. And, what are you going to do? But it doesn't really matter because whenever we release it, nobody knows when we shot it. So it's kind of been in the can for like 2 years, but we're, getting psyched and finishing it all up to release it as soon as possible, maybe do some horror festivals, which is, a ton of fun. And the second project was with people that that you introduced me. Hunter Finley is the producer, and Matt Samoji is the director, and just a couple of super young but super energetic filmmakers, super high potential, just very hungry and not yet crushed by life. so they have this optimism and sort of, wide-eyed just hunger for making everything happen. And I'm just gonna latch onto that energy like a vampire. It's just so cool to be a part of, and it's great. It's just new challenges and good excuse to lose 20 pounds.
Okay, vanity. I love it. The vanity truth. No, and I'm so excited to see you doing this because I know how passionate you are about entertainment. There's a lot of things that I would say. I mean, you're a very passion-driven person from what I've seen through the years of really getting to know you, and you really put your heart and soul into everything. So I'm excited to see where these go. Now, I have to ask you this because this is obviously what's the word, and it's something that I ask everybody. What are you currently doing for your own self-care? He loves this question.
Well, okay. I've been doing what's known as intermittent keto, which is intermittent fasting plus a bit of the keto diet, which is not full keto where you completely cut out everything except fats and protein, but it does use that in that diet, and everybody's different. I think everything works differently for everybody, but this has been good for me. Basically, I don't eat breakfast. I just have a little coffee, and then I eat no sugars and no grains for lunch. So basically, chicken and mushrooms, super boring. And then for dinner, I just eat a moderate dinner, and I do that Monday through Thursday, and then on the weekends I let myself slide a little bit more. But I know it's working because I'm starving, and it sucks. And so I know that it's right. But yeah, I've lost a lot of weight in a very easy way. Whereas I've tried before and it's been a little tougher. This was super easy. And moderate, it's not crazy.
Yeah.
It's not like my bacon cleanse.
We're not going to even tell them about this. Don't even give them these ideas. He did not just say bacon cleanse. Him and I
hashtag bacon cleanse.
We have a lot of great discussions together on the sidelines. But I definitely had to ask him about this because I know he's, but I feel every time we've talked about what you're doing now, the intermittent keto stuff, you felt, although you're kind of joking with it right now, being like, okay, I'm so starving. I know that you've admitted to me that you feel good, that you felt good overall. And you did just say, oh, well, it must be working. Well, it is interesting because when we're doing a lot of the times, the things that we need to be doing for our self-care, it requires the discipline to do the things that are discomforting or we're having resistance to, which is inevitably going to make the change. Right. So in addition to that, I would love if you could just splash in there because you are an incredible father. And I see you all the time with your little one, your little mini, and, talk maybe just a bit about your self-care element. Cause I think you have a lot of fun. I think you are really good at having fun. Maybe you can inspire someone.
Yeah. Fun is great. I don't know why else people do this thing called life, but, I think trying to have fun is good aspect of it. First of all, I have a great wife. She's an absolute sweetheart and a great mother. And that makes a huge, effect on me as a father. It makes things a lot easier. And, being a father has been great. It's been a real privilege. It definitely changes you instantly. You start wanting to take care of yourself a little bit more. You maybe don't run through the yellow light, maybe, you don't drive as fast and stuff like that. It makes you feel, so utterly responsible for this other human being. And then you feel like you have a huge debt to society to not produce a jerk, you got to make your kid into a person that people are going to like, that's going to be a positive in people's lives. And that's a daily thing, it's tough. And they don't always like to be directed in that way, but, don't make more assholes.
Oh, Louie, I feel like that's like the perfect mic drop. Is there any final words today that you want to share with our audience before we wrap this one up? Because as my producer would probably be telling me, we got to wrap this up because I have another one right after this. So I want to be, there we go. Any final thoughts, words? Yes.
Yeah, let me bookend it, as they say in the business, and bring it back to the word, stoic or stoicism. One of the main philosophical arguments is the dichotomy of control. That means that there are things you can control and there are things that you cannot control. If you go outside and get hit by a meteor, that's really hard to control. But getting hit by a train, you can probably control that by not playing on train tracks, right? The tenet of amor fati, which is, the kind of translated as the love of fate, is understanding that there are things that you can control and there are things that you can't control, and you must focus on the things that you can control and allow a sense of peace over the things that you cannot control. So it's just, it gets a little deeper than that, but it's a great way to sort of take hold of your life and, take your businesses and affairs by the reins. And a lot of people have trouble with control and they don't know how to do it. And they get anxious because they don't feel like they have it. And it's sort of like a muscle. It's something that you can work out. It's something that you can figure out how to wield it. And so, dichotomy of control.
Yes. All right, everyone. So your homework assignment on What's the Word today is think about how you can be a little bit more of a stoic in your own life, and think about the 4 principles that Louie talked about today. And definitely be sure to go and follow Louie Martinez. Can you drop your IG handle? Where do we find you?
Yeah. So Instagram, I'm Louie 2 times. I also have the Whiskey League. I also have LNM_Laserworks, which is my workshop. I'm on Twitter as Uncle Lou, but the L is a capital I, so it's Unky Lou. I guess that's about it.
My incredible podcast producer and editor who is here with us today is going to make sure to drop all of those links for you so you can go ahead and follow him there. But hopefully you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have, and hopefully Louie has. And we'll have to probably just do this again because there's a lot more that we could be talking about. And people might want to know like the juice behind what's going on behind the curtain of all that we do. So we might need a part 2 to this, I'm thinking.
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, with that being said, thank you so much, Louie. You literally have made this dream of mine come true. It is absolutely the highlight of my weeks, my days. It is just really incredible. And I'm looking forward to what we're doing. And I'm also enjoying where we're at right now. So thank you for believing in this and in me, and for all that you do in this world to remind people to get a little bit more stoic and start taking back some of that control that we can. So thank you, Louie.
Great stuff, Jamie.
Mwah. And then I want to get your wifey on soon too. She was the first interview that we never released. So we're going to redo that one.
She'd be a good one.
Yeah, she's amazing. Women in high tech. Love it. All right, Louie, have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you everyone for being on What's the Word. Be sure to follow us, subscribe, and share with your friends. Love you. Bye. Thank you for joining me here at What's the Word. Follow us on social media with the links on the screen, and don't forget to like and share with your friend. Your support helps us grow and continue to make inspirational content. See you next time on What's the Word.